Imagine a world where every word you speak builds bridges instead of walls, where your conversations don't just pass time, but spark connection, trust, and opportunity. Think of the last time you felt truly heard, when someone leaned in, eyes bright, absorbing not only your words, but the very essence of your thoughts. How did that feel? Powerful, transformative, unforgettable. Now imagine being able to give that same gift to others and receiving it in return. That is the art of effective communication. It's not just about speaking clearly or listening politely. It's about unlocking doors to deeper relationships, stronger influence, and lasting success. In this audiobook, we'll journey together through the secrets of communication that the most impactful leaders, negotiators, and partners have mastered. You'll discover how to express yourself with clarity, listen with empathy, and create connections that inspire trust and respect. By the time we reach the final chapter, you'll hold in your hands the tools to reshape every conversation, every relationship, and every opportunity that comes your way. So lean in, open your mind, and prepare yourself, because this isn't just another book about talking and listening. This is about transforming your life, one word at a time. Chapter 1. The Power of Words. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You're standing in a vast cathedral of silence. The air is heavy, waiting. Then a single word escapes your lips, and suddenly the silence shatters. That word travels like ripples across water, colliding with unseen walls, echoing endlessly into the expanse. That is the power of words. Every syllable you speak is a stone cast into the river of human experience. Some words create waves of healing, others stir storms of destruction, and whether you whisper to a child at bedtime, address a room of strangers, or leave a message that outlives your presence, your words have weight. They shape memories. They sculpt relationships. They define how others will remember you when you're gone. Think about it. Entire nations have risen because of words. Empires have fallen because of words. Wars have been declared, and peace has been signed, not by weapons, not by armies, but by language inked onto parchment, spoken aloud in halls of power. A single sentence can shift the destiny of millions, and yet the same principle holds true in the smallest of moments. A teacher's words can ignite a lifelong passion in a child who thought they weren't good enough. A careless insult, tossed like a dagger in anger, can linger for decades in the mind of someone who loved and trusted you. Words are never neutral. They are vessels, either carrying life or carrying poison. But here is the mystery. Most people throw them around as if they are weightless. We live in a world flooded with language, emails, texts, headlines, conversations, posts, and constant noise. In this storm, words often lose their sacredness. They become cheap. We speak without awareness, we respond without intention, and we forget that each utterance is a seed planted in the soil of someone's heart. Let me tell you a story. A man once stood at the bedside of his father, who was nearing the end of his life. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic and time seemed to hang suspended. The man remembered, with piercing clarity, the last real conversation they had had. It wasn't long, just a sentence spoken years earlier, sharp with frustration. "You'll never understand." Those words, unkind and careless, had echoed in his father's silence ever since. Now staring at the fragile figure before him, he realized those words would outlive their quarrel. He wanted desperately to take them back, to erase the echo. But words once spoken do not return empty. They carve paths, and those paths become the roads people walk in their relationships. The tragedy of that moment was not just that the father would soon pass. The tragedy was that the son would carry the weight of those words for the rest of his life. This is why communication is not a trivial skill. It is sacred. It is the foundation of human connection. Your words are not just sound waves. They are carriers of intention, infused with energy, reaching deeper than ears, deeper than logic. They touch the soul. Every time you open your mouth, you have a choice: to bring light or to cast shadow, to build bridges or to burn them, to create a moment of healing or to leave a scar that may never fade. And yet here is the beauty, the hope that balances the weight. Just as a word can wound, it can also mend. Just as it can destroy, it can also resurrect. A single apology spoken with sincerity can breathe life into a broken relationship. A single word of encouragement can redirect the trajectory of someone's destiny. Consider the child told, "You are brilliant, you are capable, I believe in you." That sentence doesn't just affirm, it plants a seed. That seed grows into confidence, into courage, into resilience that carries them through trial. The same child told, "You'll never amount to anything," will carry a very different seed. This is why mastery of communication is not optional. It is essential for your relationships, your influence, and your legacy. But here's the paradox. Communication is so natural, so constant, that we underestimate it. Breathing is natural too. Yet one deep breath can change your entire state. Speaking is natural, yet one word can change someone's entire life. The difference lies in awareness. To become an effective communicator, you must begin with reverence. Reverence for the energy you release each time you speak. Reverence for the ears that will hear you and the hearts that will interpret you. Reverence for the truth that your words are not just for today. They echo into tomorrow, and sometimes into forever. Let's widen the lens for a moment. The universe itself, in countless traditions and spiritual texts, is said to have been created by a word, a sound, a vibration. Creation itself began with communication. That is how profound language is, not merely a human invention, but a reflection of divine energy. When you speak, you participate in that same creative force. The question then becomes, what are you creating with your words? Each time you tell a story, you build a world. Each time you encourage someone, you create hope. Each time you gossip, you build walls of division. Every word is architecture. The question is not whether you're building, but what you're building. And the choice is always yours. This chapter is your awakening. It is the invitation to no longer treat communication as casual background noise, but as a sacred art form. The art of speaking life. The art of healing through expression. The art of using words with precision, with empathy, and with purpose. When you understand this, even silence takes on a new meaning. Silence is not the absence of words, it is the frame around them. Silence gives weight to what is spoken. Silence, when paired with the right words, can be louder than thunder. So I ask you, the next time you speak, will your words leave scars, or will they leave light? Will they echo as regret, or as remembrance of kindness? Will they push someone away, or pull them closer? This is the beginning of your journey into effective communication. Not tricks, not techniques, not scripts, but transformation. Because when you change your relationship with words, you change your relationship with people. And when you change your relationship with people, you change your world. Now, as we step forward, we must uncover the missing half of communication. Because while words carry immense power, they are only one side of the equation. Speaking is important, but true transformation happens when you learn how to listen. And so in the next chapter, we will enter the realm of silence. We will step into the lost art of listening, where the deepest connections are born. Not from what you say, but from what you hear. Chapter 2: The Lost Art of Listening. Picture this: a crowded cafe, cups clinking, voices buzzing like bees in a hive. A young woman sits across from her friend, pouring her heart out, words trembling with vulnerability. But her friend isn't really there. His eyes dart to his phone. His smile is polite but vacant. He nods in the right places, yet his attention is elsewhere. And in that moment, the young woman realizes something painful. She is speaking, but she is not being heard. Have you ever felt that? That hollow ache of invisibility when your voice is reduced to background noise in someone else's busy world. It's one of the deepest hungers of the human soul to be truly heard, not just with the ears, but with the heart. Listening. It sounds so simple, so obvious, yet in truth it is one of the rarest gifts in our world today. We live in an age of constant noise, notifications, conversations, opinions, arguments, endless streams of voices shouting for attention. But in this flood of words, listening has become an endangered art. People hear sounds, but they don't listen to meaning. They hear words, but they don't catch the soul behind them. And so conversations skim the surface, never touching the depths where connection is born. But here's the truth: when you master the art of listening, you open a doorway into a different kind of world. A world where people feel safe around you, a world where your relationships carry depth, trust and intimacy, a world where influence flows not from how loud you speak, but from how deeply you hear. Let me take you back to an old story. There was once a wise teacher who rarely spoke. His students were puzzled. They asked him, "Why do you remain so quiet when we come to you with our questions?" The teacher smiled and replied, "Because the world already has enough noise. My gift to you is silence, so you can hear yourselves." And in that silence, his students discovered something remarkable: their own answers. That is the hidden power of listening. When you create space for others to be heard, you don't just understand their words, you help them discover truths within themselves. Think of listening as more than an act. It is a posture of the soul. It says, "I am present, I am open, I am here for you." In a world addicted to speaking, listening becomes a sacred rebellion. But here's the challenge: most of us confuse listening with waiting to speak. You know the moment you're not really absorbing what the other person is saying. You're rehearsing your response, polishing your argument, waiting for the pause so you can jump in. That isn't listening. That's competition. True listening requires surrender. It means silencing the noise inside you long enough to make room for someone else's truth. It's not about agreeing or fixing. It's about honoring. It's about letting someone know. Your story matters. Your pain matters. Your joy matters. You matter. And when people feel heard, something extraordinary happens. They soften. They open. Defenses crumble, and authenticity rises. Listening becomes the soil in which trust grows. Think of the last argument you had. Anger flared, voices rose, emotions boiled. What would have changed if instead of trying to win, you had stopped and simply listened? Not to the accusations, not to the tone, but to the need beneath the noise, the fear, the longing, the hurt that gave those words their fire. When you listen beyond the surface, you no longer hear just complaints or criticisms. You hear the heart, and when you respond to the heart, not just the words, transformation happens. Let me share a moment from my own journey. I once met a man who had spent years feeling ignored, even by those closest to him. He told me something I've never forgotten. The first time someone truly listened to me, I cried. Not because of what they said, but because of what they didn't. They didn't interrupt. They didn't judge. They just stayed. And in that silence, I felt seen for the first time in my life. Do you see how powerful that is? We spend billions searching for love, validation, belonging. Yet one of the simplest, most overlooked ways to give those things is to listen. But listening is not passive. It demands focus. It requires humility. It invites empathy. To truly listen, you must quiet the ego's urge to dominate the conversation, to solve, to impress. Instead, you must enter into the sacred space of another human being's world. And this is where listening takes on a spiritual depth, because when you truly listen, you are practicing presence. You are stepping out of your own timeline, your own agenda, and entering fully into the now. That presence alone can be healing. The great paradox is this: the quieter you become, the louder others reveal themselves. And in that revelation, You begin to understand life in ways speaking could never teach you. Now imagine what this means for your relationships. Imagine your partner realizing for the first time that you are not just hearing their words, but their heart. Imagine your child lighting up because you listened not only to their story, but to the wonder behind their eyes. Imagine your colleagues trusting you more because your listening makes them feel respected. This is not just communication, it is communion, a joining of souls through the simple act of presence. But let me challenge you with this. Listening is not only about others. Sometimes the voice that most desperately needs your attention is your own. We drown our inner wisdom with noise, distraction, and endless activity. But when you listen inward, when you give your own heart the same patience and compassion you offer others, you begin to hear the whispers of clarity, purpose, and peace. So let me ask you, when was the last time you sat in stillness and truly listened, not to your fear, not to the endless chatter of the mind, but to the quiet, steady voice beneath it, the one that knows, the one that waits, the one that guides? Listening is a sacred art because it connects you to others and it reconnects you to yourself. It transforms conversations into connections and connections into relationships that last. But listening is not the end of the journey. Listening is the bridge. Once you master the art of hearing others, the next challenge is to speak without words, to understand the hidden language that flows through gestures, expressions, and silence itself. Because while listening reveals the heart, the body reveals the soul. And so in our next chapter, we will step beyond sound, beyond speech, into the silent but powerful world of body language, the communication that speaks louder than any word. Chapter 3: The Language of the Body. Before a single word leaves your lips, before sound shapes itself into meaning, you are already speaking. Imagine stepping into a crowded room. No one has addressed you yet. No one has said your name, but you can feel who is open, who is guarded, who is radiating joy, and who is weighed down with sorrow. How? Not through words, but through posture, through the angle of a glance, through the rhythm of breath. The truth is undeniable. Your body is a language all its own, and it is speaking every moment of your life. Think of a newborn child. They cannot articulate with words, yet their tiny fists clenched in hunger, their cries, their soft coos, their reaching hands, all communicate more than a dictionary could capture. We understand them not by vocabulary but by presence, by tuning into the body's signals. Now consider this. You never stopped speaking that language. You simply forgot how powerful it is. The body whispers what the mouth hides, a handshake that lingers too long, eyes that dart away when the truth is uncomfortable, a smile that stretches wide but never touches the eyes. Every gesture is a sentence, every glance is a paragraph, and those around you are reading it, whether consciously or not. Here lies the irony. People often obsess over finding the right words, but words make up only a fraction of human communication. Studies may argue over the exact percentage, but the principle is clear. What you say with your body carries more weight than what you say with your tongue. Let me tell you a story. A young woman once went to her mentor in despair. "I don't know why people don't trust me," she said. "I tell them I care. I tell them I'll be there for them. I say all the right things." The mentor simply pointed to her posture, shoulders slumped inward, arms crossed tightly across her chest, her eyes darting nervously to the ground. He told her, "Your words are speaking one thing, but your body is telling the truth, and people believe the truth they can see." That moment changed her life. She realized she had been sabotaging her own message, not through dishonesty, but through misalignment. Her words and her body were out of sync, and trust cannot grow where signals contradict. Authentic communication begins when body and voice harmonize, when the melody of your words matches the rhythm of your movements. Think about the last time you encountered someone who radiated confidence. They didn't need to announce it. Their presence said it before their words did. The way they stood tall, the way they entered the room with grounded energy, the way they looked directly into the eyes of others, it all declared a message of certainty, or recalled the comfort of someone who exuded warmth. They didn't need to say, "I care about you." You felt it in the way they leaned forward, the way their touch was gentle, the way their expression softened when you spoke. Their body spoke the language of compassion. This is the art of embodied communication, understanding that your body is not an accessory to your words, but the stage upon which every word is performed. But let's go deeper. Beyond gestures and posture, body language reveals spiritual truth. The body is not merely a vessel, it is a mirror of the inner world. When your heart is heavy, your body bends under the invisible weight. When your spirit is free, your body expands, your movements become fluid, your eyes shine with light. The soul whispers through the body long before the mind translates it into words. And so, awareness becomes essential. You must ask yourself, what is my body saying when my mouth is silent? Pause for a moment, reflect on your own patterns. Do you shrink yourself when you feel uncertain? Do you cross your arms when you feel threatened? Do you fidget when you feel unworthy of attention? These are not flaws, they are signals, invitations to greater self-awareness. Because when you align your body with your intention, you amplify your message. A kind word paired with open palms and steady eye contact becomes unforgettable. A boundary spoken with firm posture and unwavering gaze becomes unshakable. Your body reinforces what your voice declares, but beware, the body can also betray. A lie may sound polished in tone, but hesitation in the eyes, stiffness in posture, or a fleeting grimace will whisper the truth. That is why authenticity matters, not only for morality, but for effectiveness. Your body will always betray the words that are not rooted in sincerity. The power then lies in integration. To embody your communication is to live in truth. To allow your words, your heart and your physical presence to move as one. This alignment is what gives great leaders their charisma, lovers their magnetism, and friends their trustworthiness. And here is a secret. You don't need to learn body language as if it were a set of tricks. You need only cultivate presence. When you are fully present, when you are truly listening, when you are speaking from the heart, your body naturally reflects your authenticity. Your eyes meet theirs, your posture opens, your gestures flow with ease. Presence transforms the body into a clear channel of truth. Now let's imagine together. Imagine standing in front of someone you love. Imagine that instead of rushing to speak, you simply let your body say it first. You soften your gaze, you lean in slightly, you breathe deeply, signaling safety and openness. Before your words even arrive, your presence has already spoken. I am here. I see you. You matter. That is the sacred gift of body language. It transcends vocabulary. It crosses cultures. It speaks in silence. It reminds us that we are more than voices. We are living, breathing expressions of connection. But remember this, communication is not only about expressing. It is also about perceiving. Just as your body speaks, others are speaking through theirs. Learning to listen with your eyes, to notice the tremor in a hand, the hesitation in a step, the sparkle or dullness in someone's gaze. This is how you begin to read the unspoken chapters of a person's story. And when you do, you will find compassion growing within you. For behind the rigid posture may be years of pain. Behind the forced smile may be silent exhaustion. Behind the laughter may be loneliness. When you learn to read the body, you learn to touch the soul. So, what is the lesson here? Words matter. Yes, listening matters, but without the body, without presence, without the silent orchestra of posture, gesture, and expression. Communication remains incomplete. To master connection, you must master not only the language of the tongue, but the language of the body. And yet, even as we explore this silent conversation, another dimension calls to us, because communication is not only about logic and posture. It is also deeply emotional. The unspoken waves of feeling guide every exchange, coloring every interaction. To ignore emotion is to miss the heart of connection. And so, in our next chapter, we will journey into the currents beneath every conversation. The power of emotional intelligence, where listening and body language meet the soul, and where true transformation begins. Chapter 4: Emotional Intelligence in Conversation. Picture a storm. The sky darkens, thunder cracks across the horizon, and the wind howls with invisible fury. But if you step into the eye of that storm, what do you find? Stillness. Silence. A strange, unexpected calm. Now imagine that storm is not outside of you, but within you. Your emotions, anger, fear, joy, grief, are the winds and lightning. They surge, they clash, they overwhelm, and in the middle of them, hidden but real, is the stillness you rarely touch, the calm center where wisdom lives. This is emotional intelligence. It is not about denying your emotions or burying them beneath a mask of composure. It is about learning to step into the eye of your storm. It is about seeing, naming, and guiding the powerful forces within you, so they do not consume you or the people you love. Because here's the truth: every conversation you have carries an emotional current. Some are calm streams of understanding, some are tidal waves of conflict, some are hidden undercurrents, so subtle you don't see them, yet strong enough to pull everything beneath the surface. To communicate effectively, you cannot only hear the words spoken, you must also hear the emotions humming beneath them. Let me tell you a story. A father comes home after a long day of work. His teenage daughter sits at the table, staring at her phone. He asks how her day went. She shrugs. Fine. He presses, frustrated by her distance. Why don't you ever talk to me anymore? She snaps back. Because you don't listen. The room fills with tension, both retreating into silence. On the surface it looks like defiance and frustration. But beneath those words, fear. The daughter is afraid of not being understood. The father is afraid of losing his connection to her. The argument isn't about words, it's about love tangled in emotion. If the father had listened beneath the storm, if he had noticed the sadness in her eyes instead of the sharpness in her voice, he might have responded differently. And if the daughter had recognized her father's longing behind his frustration, she might have softened too. This is the gift of emotional intelligence, the ability to read not just the language of the tongue or the body, but the language of the heart. But let's step back. What is emotional intelligence, truly? It is the skill of recognizing emotions in yourself and in others. It is the discipline of managing your own impulses and the empathy of responding to others with understanding. It begins with self-awareness. You cannot manage emotions you refuse to name. So many conversations collapse, not because people don't care, but because they are ruled by feelings they don't recognize. Have you ever snapped at someone, only to realize later your anger wasn't about them at all? That it came from exhaustion, or insecurity, or unspoken grief. Without awareness, your emotions drive the car, and you don't even notice you've given them the keys. But awareness changes everything. To pause, to breathe, to say inwardly, I am angry, I am afraid, I am joyful, I am lonely. That small act takes you from being a prisoner of emotion to being its steward. Then comes self-regulation. This doesn't mean suppression. Suppressed emotions rot in the dark and resurface with greater force. Regulation means channeling. It means letting anger become courage instead of cruelty. It means letting sadness become vulnerability instead of withdrawal. It means letting joy overflow into generosity instead of arrogance. Once you master yourself, you can begin to recognize emotions in others. This is empathy, not pity, not projection, but presence. Empathy is hearing the tremble in someone's voice and knowing it is fear, not disrespect. It is noticing the tightness in their smile and sensing their hidden grief. It is stepping into their world and saying, I see you, I feel with you. And finally, emotional intelligence is expressed in relationship management. It is the ability to take awareness and empathy and turn them into action, so you don't just feel with others, but you walk with them. You respond with words and gestures that de-escalate, that heal, that inspire. Imagine the transformation this creates in your relationships. Conflicts that once spiraled into shouting matches now become bridges of understanding. Conversations that once felt shallow now flow into depths of trust. Influence that once felt manipulative now becomes authentic and magnetic. Because people don't remember what you said nearly as much as how you made them feel. And emotional intelligence is the art of leaving others feeling safe, respected and valued in your presence. But here is the challenge. Emotions are not always clear. Sometimes they are layered, complex, contradictory. A person can laugh while they're hurting, or grow angry when they're really afraid. To read these subtleties, you must slow down, you must step out of judgment and into curiosity. Ask yourself, what is the story beneath the surface? What is this person really longing for? Every sharp word hides a softer need. Every defensive wall protects a fragile truth. When you learn to see beneath the surface, your conversations shift from battles of ego to dances of compassion. Let me give you a picture. Imagine two people locked in argument. Their voices clash, their bodies stiffen, their words cut. But imagine someone presses pause. The noise freezes, like a scene in a movie. Then imagine the lens zooms in. Not on their mouths, but on their heart. One is saying, I'm scared you'll abandon me. The other is saying, I'm afraid you don't value me. Suddenly the fight makes sense. Beneath every storm is a longing for connection. Emotional intelligence is learning to press that pause button in real life, to look beyond the lightning of words and see the quiet thunder of the heart. This is why emotional intelligence is not just a skill. It is a form of wisdom. It demands humility, patience, and courage. It calls you to be more than a speaker, more than a listener. It calls you to be a healer in your relationships. And here's the profound truth. When you practice emotional intelligence with others, you will discover it reflected back at you. As you give empathy, you receive. As you create safety, others create safety for you. It becomes a cycle of mutual transformation. So I ask you now, when was the last time you stopped in the middle of a heated conversation, took a breath and asked yourself not how do I win, but what are they feeling right now, and how can I respond with wisdom instead of reaction? That question alone could save marriages, heal friendships, and transform workplaces. This is the path you are now invited to walk. The path of emotional intelligence, the path of moving beyond words and gestures into the realm of the heart. But we are not finished yet, because while emotions guide every interaction, they cannot flourish without something deeper, something that cements trust and allows relationships to thrive. That something is honesty. And in our next chapter, we will uncover why truth, spoken with courage and compassion, is the foundation of all lasting connection. Chapter 5. Building Trust Through Honesty. Imagine walking across a bridge suspended high above a canyon. The drop is terrifying, the wind howls, and every step tests your courage. But what matters most? Not your balance, not your speed, not your courage. What matters most is whether the bridge can hold your weight. Trust is that bridge. Every relationship, whether it is a marriage, a friendship, a business partnership, or even a fleeting encounter, rests upon it. Without trust, no matter how skilled your words, No matter how polished your gestures, the ground beneath you gives way. Without trust, communication is like shouting across an abyss. You speak, they hear, but nothing real crosses over. And what builds that bridge stronger than anything else? Honesty. Honesty is the foundation stone of human connection. It is the light that cuts through the fog of doubt. It is the anchor that steadies a ship tossed by uncertainty. Without honesty, trust cannot exist. With honesty, trust becomes unshakable. But let me be clear, honesty is not simply the act of telling the truth. It is not blurting out raw thoughts without care or wielding truth like a weapon. Honesty is deeper. It is the alignment of your words with your heart, your intentions with your action. It is integrity expressed in the language of your life. Think of it this way. Dishonesty is not only when we lie to others, it is also when we betray ourselves, when we smile while seething inside, when we say yes while our soul screams no, when we agree to please but secretly resent. Every time we fracture the truth, we fracture the bridge, and soon those cracks widen until no one dares to cross. I once heard a story about a young craftsman who built violins. Each violin was beautiful to the eye, carved with intricate detail, but some were weak inside, their wood hollowed with shortcuts, the grain misaligned. They looked magnificent but could not hold a note. Others he built with patience and care, solid, balanced, resonant. These were the violins that sang. Honesty is that hidden craftsmanship of the soul. On the outside, your words may look polished, but if they are hollow, if they lack the resonance of truth, they will not sing. People will feel it. They may not know why, but something will seem off, and slowly their trust in you will weaken. Here's the beauty though. When you choose honesty, even imperfect honesty, people feel safe with you. They may not always like what you say, but they will know where you stand. They will know your words are not a performance, but a reflection of your true self. And safety is the soil where every relationship grows. Consider a workplace. Imagine a leader who hides the truth, who sugarcoats, withholds, or manipulates. At first, people nod and smile, but beneath they grow cautious. They whisper in hallways, second-guessing every word. Fear replaces trust, and the team fractures. Now imagine a leader who speaks with honesty. They do not pretend all is perfect. They acknowledge challenges. They do not mask their humanity. They admit mistakes. The result, their people trust them. And with trust, teams unite, creativity blossoms, and loyalty deepens. The same is true in love. Relationships do not crumble because of differences. They crumble because honesty was abandoned. When you hide your true feelings, when you pretend instead of reveal, when you cover wounds instead of confessing them, distance grows. But when you dare to be honest, even in discomfort, you offer your partner the greatest gift, your truth. And truth, once shared, becomes a bridge no storm can wash away. Yet honesty requires courage. Why? Because truth exposes. It strips away pretense. It risks rejection, judgment, even conflict. But what is the alternative? A relationship built on illusion, a fragile piece that cracks at the first tremor. Honesty may be risky, but dishonesty is fatal. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine planting a garden. You place seeds in the soil, water them, wait for them to grow. But if the soil is laced with toxins, what happens? The plants sprout weak, stunted, unable to thrive. Dishonesty is that toxin. It poisons the soil of every relationship. Honesty, on the other hand, is pure earth, nourishing, fertile, alive. Even if storms come, even if weeds grow, plants rooted in good soil survive. Now, honesty is not just about what you speak. It is about how you live. If your words say one thing, but your actions say another, trust breaks. If you preach loyalty but practice betrayal, people notice. If you promise and do not follow through, trust erodes. Honesty is not simply a moment of truth-telling. It is a lifestyle of consistency. It is living in such a way that your very presence becomes a statement of reliability. But here is something often overlooked. Honesty must be paired with compassion. Raw, blunt truth can cut deeper than silence. The goal is not to throw truth like stones, but to weave it into bridges. An honest word, delivered with empathy, can heal. The same word, delivered without care, can destroy. So the art is not just in speaking truth. It is in speaking truth in love. Think of a surgeon's scalpel. In careless hands, it wounds. In skilled hands, it saves lives. Honesty is the same. Spoken recklessly, it can scar. Spoken wisely, it can restore. And this wisdom comes from your intention. Ask yourself before you speak, am I saying this to wound or to heal? Am I speaking to prove myself or to strengthen the bond? Am I delivering truth as a hammer or as a hand reaching across the gap? Because honesty is not the opposite of kindness. Honesty is the highest form of kindness. To see someone clearly, to allow yourself to be seen clearly, that is love in its purest form. Now let's return to that bridge we imagined at the beginning. Trust is not built in a single moment. It is built step by step, plank by plank, each one laid down with honesty. 1,000 small truths build a bridge stronger than one grand declaration. And once built, it allows you and others to cross into deeper connection, into safety, into belonging. So ask yourself now, where in your life are you withholding truth? Where are you smiling when you want to cry, agreeing when you long to refuse, hiding when you long to reveal? What would it cost to be honest? And more importantly, what would it cost not to? Because the price of dishonesty is always higher. It costs you intimacy. It costs you freedom. It costs you the chance to be fully known. But honesty, though it requires courage, gives you everything dishonesty cannot. Peace within yourself, trust with others, and relationships built not on illusion, but on reality. And here is the beauty. When you live with honesty, you inspire others to do the same. You give them permission to step out from behind their masks. You become a lighthouse of truth in a world filled with shadows, and people will gravitate to that light. So let this be your calling, to build trust, not with grand speeches, but with consistent honesty. To be the person whose words and actions align, to be the bridge others know they can walk across without fear of it collapsing beneath them. And yet, honesty alone is not enough, because what happens after the truth is spoken? How do you repair the breaks that honesty sometimes reveals? How do you heal the fractures that every human relationship inevitably carries? That is where we turn next, to the art of forgiveness and reconciliation. The hidden power that restores what was broken and allows trust to not only survive, but to grow stronger. Chapter 6. The healing power of forgiveness and reconciliation. Picture a heavy stone tied to your back. At first, you think you can manage it. You stand tall, you walk forward, but with every step, the weight digs deeper into your shoulders. The muscles ache, the breath shortens. Life becomes smaller, slower, harder. Now imagine living years like that, carrying anger, betrayal, resentment, stones tied not to your back, but to your heart. You may smile, you may function, but inside you are weighed down by what was done to you, or perhaps by what you did to someone else. This is the reality of unforgiveness. It is not a punishment we give others. It is a prison we build for ourselves. And the key to that prison, the key to lightness, to freedom, to restoration, is forgiveness. But let's be clear, forgiveness is not weakness. It is not pretending the wound never happened. It is not excusing betrayal, minimizing pain, or erasing memory. Forgiveness is strength. It is the courage to release the poison so it no longer rules you. It is choosing healing over hatred, peace over bitterness, freedom over chains. Think of a glass jar filled with venom. Each day you sip from it, believing your enemy will suffer, but the venom never touches them. It corrodes only you. Forgiveness is the act of setting that jar down and choosing never to drink from it again. I remember hearing of two neighbors who fought for decades. A simple disagreement over a fence line turned into years of silence, glares and bitterness. Their children grew up learning not to cross into the other yard, not to speak, not to smile. Two families imprisoned by pride. But one day, as the older of the two men fell ill, his neighbor came to visit. With trembling voice he said, "We've wasted too many years. I'm sorry." The other, with tears streaming down his face, whispered, "So am I." In that moment, the wall between them collapsed. Forgiveness didn't erase the years of division, but it gave them the gift of peace in the years that remained. Forgiveness heals not only relationships, but generations. Yet forgiveness alone is not the whole story. Sometimes, forgiveness opens the door, but reconciliation is what walks us through. Forgiveness happens in the heart. It is the release of bitterness. Reconciliation happens between people. It is the rebuilding of trust, brick by brick, step by step. And this distinction matters, because sometimes forgiveness is possible, but reconciliation is not. You can forgive someone who has passed away. You can forgive someone who is unsafe to be near. Forgiveness sets you free, regardless of whether reconciliation occurs. But when reconciliation is possible, when both hearts are willing, the miracle unfolds. Two souls once fractured meet again. The bridge, once broken, is rebuilt stronger than before. But let's be honest, reconciliation is hard. It requires humility. It requires time. It requires facing the wound instead of hiding it. Imagine a broken bone. If left unattended, it may heal crooked, leaving pain for years to come. But if tended to, reset carefully, given time, it regains strength. Relationships are no different. If ignored, the break festers. If faced, tended, restored, it becomes whole again. So how do we step into forgiveness? How do we walk toward reconciliation? First, we must confront the wound. Pretending we are not hurt keeps the poison alive. Naming the pain. I was betrayed. I was rejected. I was wronged is the first act of courage. Second, we must choose release. This does not mean condoning what happened. It means refusing to let it define us. Forgiveness says, "What you did hurt me, but it will not hold me forever. I release it. I release you." Third, when reconciliation is possible, we take the risk of reaching out. We admit our part. We listen to theirs. We commit not to perfection, but to rebuilding trust through small, consistent steps. And in this process, something extraordinary happens. What once was broken can become stronger than it was before, like a mosaic crafted from shattered glass. The relationship may not look the same, but its beauty lies in the healing. Perhaps you are listening now with someone in mind. A parent who never understood you, a friend who betrayed you, a partner who wounded you with words. Or maybe you think of yourself, the apologies you never gave, the wounds you caused but never healed. Hear me clearly, it is never too late to forgive. It is never too late to reconcile. Time does not erase the possibility of restoration. Only pride does. Yet I will not pretend this path is easy. Forgiveness feels impossible when the wound is deep. Reconciliation feels unreachable when the distance is great. But remember this, forgiveness is not a feeling, it is a decision. And often, the feeling follows the decision. You may not wake up one day and feel forgiving, but you can choose to forgive. And each time resentment rises, you can choose again. Slowly, the chains weaken. Slowly, the weight lifts. Until one day, you realize the stone is gone. And in its place, something unexpected grows, compassion. You begin to see the humanity of the one who hurt you. You see their brokenness, their wounds, their story. Forgiveness transforms enemies into humans, and sometimes humans into friends. Now imagine what would happen if forgiveness became the norm, not the exception. Families divided for years would embrace again. Nations torn by hatred would begin to heal. Communities fractured by pride would rediscover unity. Forgiveness is not just personal, it is the seed of peace for the world. So I ask you now, what stone are you carrying? Whose face rises in your memory with pain or anger? What venom do you sip, hoping they will suffer, while only you are poisoned? Imagine laying it down. Imagine the freedom. Imagine the weight gone, the breath restored, the bridge rebuilt, because forgiveness is not a gift for them. It is a gift for you, and reconciliation, when possible, is a gift for both. So let us choose courage. Let us choose release. Let us choose to be builders of bridges, healers of wounds, restorers of what was broken. For when forgiveness flows, and reconciliation follows, communication is no longer just words, it becomes redemption. And yet, there is one more step. Even with honesty, trust, and forgiveness, conversations require another sacred ingredient, the ability to listen, not with ears alone, but with the soul. That is where we turn next, into the quiet art of listening deeply, the kind of listening that can change not just conversations, but lives. Chapter 7. The Sacred Art of Deep Listening. Imagine this. You are sitting by a still lake at dawn. The mist hovers above the surface, and the world is hushed. You lean closer, straining to hear, and in the silence, you notice the faint ripple of water, the gentle stir of a bird in the trees, the heartbeat of the morning itself. That is what true listening feels like. Not the casual nods we give while waiting for our turn to speak. Not the distracted hums while scrolling through our devices. I mean deep listening, the kind that quiets the noise inside you so you can hear the soul of another human being. Most people think they listen, but let's be honest, they don't. They prepare responses, they judge, they compare, they drift. And in doing so, they miss the sacred music playing beneath the words. But here is the truth. Deep listening is not passive. It is an act of profound courage. Because to listen deeply, you must set aside your ego. You must silence the inner voice that says, "How does this affect me?" and instead ask, "What is this person truly giving me right now?" Let me tell you a story. A young man once went to a monastery, desperate for wisdom. He sat before the elder monk and poured out his frustrations, his failures, his anger, his confusion. The monk said nothing. He simply looked at the young man with eyes that did not waver, that did not judge. For an hour, the young man spoke, until finally he broke down and wept. The monk reached out, placed a hand gently on his shoulder, and said, "Now you have begun to hear yourself." That is the power of listening. It does not merely capture words, it creates space for truth to surface. It gives another person the gift of being seen, being valued, being understood. Have you ever noticed how rare it is to feel truly heard? Think about it. How many people in your life listen not to reply, but to understand? How many conversations have left you lighter, freer, because someone gave you the gift of presence? This rarity makes deep listening sacred, because when you practice it, you become a mirror for others. You reflect back not only their words, but their worth. You tell them, without needing to speak, you matter, your story matters, your feelings matter, and that message heals more than 1,000 speeches ever could. But here's the challenge. Deep listening requires discipline. Our minds are restless. They leap ahead, form judgments, wander into memories. To listen deeply is to train the mind to stay, to anchor it, moment by moment, in the unfolding truth of another's heart. So how do we do this? First, we quiet ourselves. This is not only external silence, but internal. It means taking a breath before the conversation begins. It means letting go of the urge to fix, to defend, to compete. Second, we give full attention. Eyes that meet without wandering. Body language that says, I am with you. In that moment, the world disappears, and the person before you becomes the only voice that matters. Third, we listen beneath the surface. Words are the surface. Emotions are the current beneath. Needs, longings, fears. These are the depth. Deep listening is not about capturing syllables. It is about sensing the ocean of meaning underneath them. Fourth, we respond with presence, not performance. Sometimes that means silence. Sometimes a question. Sometimes a simple I hear you. The goal is not to impress, but to affirm. Not to shine, but to hold space. I want you to imagine this in your own life. Picture a friend, a partner, a child, speaking to you with pain in their voice. Imagine resisting the urge to rush in with advice, or to shift the story back to yourself. Instead, you lean in, you breathe, you wait, and as they continue, something extraordinary happens. Their words grow freer, their spirit lighter, because in your listening, they find healing. That is the secret no one tells you. Listening heals, not because you provide answers, but because you provide presence, and presence is what every soul craves most. But deep listening is not just for others, it is also for yourself. How often do you silence your own inner voice? How often do you drown out your intuition with noise, distraction? Yet within you there is wisdom whispering, waiting to be heard. Deep listening invites you not only into the hearts of others, but into your own. And here lies a profound truth. When you listen deeply to yourself, you become capable of listening deeply to others. When you practice compassion toward your own story, you extend it more easily to theirs. So let us reimagine communication, not as a battle of voices competing to be heard, but as a dance of listening, one where silence is as powerful as speech, where attention is more precious than advice, where presence is the ultimate act of love. Now imagine what the world would look like if listening became our default. Families would argue less and understand more. Leaders would connect with the people they serve. Strangers would recognize one another's humanity. Wars perhaps would not vanish overnight, but they might lose their fuel, because so much conflict is born, not from disagreement, but from the ache of not being heard. Deep listening is not small, it is revolutionary. And yet, as powerful as it is, listening alone is not enough, because sometimes words are not only to be heard, they are to be chosen with care. Listening prepares the soil, but the seeds we plant must still matter. That is where we turn next to the art of speaking with clarity and intention. How to shape words that do not just fill silence, but ignite transformation. Chapter 8. The fire hidden in your words. Picture this, a single spark in the darkness. At first, it seems small, fragile, insignificant, but given air, it grows, it spreads, it transforms night into light, cold into warmth, despair into possibility. That is the power of your words. Every sentence you speak, every syllable you release into the world, carries the potential to burn or to bless, to wound or to heal, to divide or to unite. Words are not merely sounds strung together, they are forces alive, creative, magnetic. And yet how carelessly we often scatter them. We toss them into conversations without weight, as if they were feathers. But feathers do not pierce hearts. Feathers do not rebuild broken spirits. Words do. Words chosen with clarity and intention can lift an entire life out of the shadows. I want you to think about the moments that shaped you most. Chances are you remember not just what happened, but what was said. Perhaps it was the encouragement of a teacher who believed in you when no one else did. Perhaps it was the cutting remark of a parent, spoken in anger, still echoing decades later. Perhaps it was the simple words, "I love you," spoken at the right time, that gave you courage to keep going. This is the hidden truth. Words build worlds. The worlds we live in, the stories we believe, the identities we carry, they are all constructed, brick by brick, from the words spoken to us and through us. But here's the question. Are you building consciously or unconsciously? Are you shaping your words like a master craftsman, or are you letting them spill like water, without care, without aim? Because here's the reality. Every word you speak plants a seed. Some seeds grow into trees of bitterness, others into gardens of hope. And the harvest of those seeds is not only reaped by others, it comes back to you. Let me tell you a story. There was once a village where two men sold bread. One baker greeted every customer with joy, offering not just bread but warmth. His words were seasoned with kindness. The other baker was impatient, sharp, quick to anger. Over time, the first man's shop overflowed, not because his bread was better, but because people hungered as much for his spirit as for his food. The second man's store emptied, not because his bread was worse, but because his words left a bitter taste that no meal could satisfy. Your words are your true harvest. They create atmospheres around you, either environments people long to enter, or ones they flee. So how do we wield this power wisely? How do we speak with clarity and intention? First, we must understand that clarity is not about fancy language or perfect grammar. Clarity is about alignment. It is about speaking from the root of truth, rather than the surface of impulse. It means asking yourself, why am I saying this? What fruit do I want this word to bear? Second, intention gives words their shape. To speak intentionally is to pause before releasing a thought, to weigh its impact, to infuse it with purpose. Just as an archer does not release an arrow without aiming, you must not release words without vision. Third, we must embrace the discipline of silence. Not every thought deserves a voice. Some words, if spoken prematurely, can do more harm than good. Silence is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is the refining fire that tempers language into gold. And when you do speak, speak as though your words are living gifts. Let them carry honesty, but clothe honesty in compassion. Let them carry courage, but temper courage with humility. Let them carry love, but let love be strong enough to tell the truth. You may think, but what difference can my words make? I am just one person. Let me remind you of history. Great movements have been ignited by words. A single speech can topple empire. A single sentence can spark revolutions. And equally, a single whisper of encouragement can save a life teetering on the edge. Do not underestimate the fire you carry in your tongue. But here is the danger. Fire does not discriminate. It can warm a home or burn it down. It can light the way or destroy the path. That is why clarity and intention are not luxuries. They are responsibilities. To speak carelessly is to strike matches in dry fields. To speak with wisdom is to light lamps in the dark. Think about your daily conversation with your partner, your children, your colleagues, even strangers. Ask yourself, am I speaking to impress or to impact? Am I speaking to be right or to bring light? Am I speaking to dominate or to connect? When you begin to live with this awareness, your entire world shifts, because your words are no longer noise. They become instruments. Instruments that can tune the atmosphere of a room, that can transform conflict into understanding, despair into hope, apathy into action. And here is the beauty. When you speak with clarity and intention, people feel it. They lean in. They trust you. They remember you. Because clarity is rare. Intention is rare. And the rare always leaves a mark. But let us not forget, speaking with clarity is not about perfection. It is about presence. It is about anchoring your words in the deepest part of yourself, so that when they leave your mouth, they carry not just sound, but spirit. So I leave you with this invitation. The next time you speak, imagine your words as seeds. Ask yourself, what am I planting in this moment? A thorn, or a rose, a weed, or a tree that will shade generations. Speak not to fill silence, but to fill souls. Speak not to perform, but to transform. Speak as if every word you utter will echo into eternity, because in a way it does. And remember this, the fire hidden in your words is not meant to remain a spark. It is meant to become a flame that lights your path, warms your relationships, and illuminates the world around you. But words alone are not enough. Even the most beautiful words, if not lived, collapse into dust. So our next step is to bridge the distance between what we say and how we live, to align language with action, voice with embodiment, word with deed. Because the greatest speech in the world means nothing if it is not incarnated in your life. Chapter 9. Living your words. When speech becomes action. Imagine a bridge stretching across a vast canyon. On one side lies your words, the dreams you speak, the promises you make, the wisdom you share. On the other side lies your actions, the choices, behaviors, and sacrifices that prove those words true. The bridge between them, integrity. Without the bridge, words collapse into the canyon of emptiness, echoing briefly before fading. Without the bridge, even the most beautiful speech remains only sound, unable to carry anyone across. But when words and actions meet, when the bridge is built strong and steady, then what you say becomes what you live. And that is where the true art of communication begins. Not in the mouth, but in the life. Let me ask you this. How many times have you heard someone say one thing and live another? How many times have promises been broken, not because of malice, but because of misalignment? Words without action are like painted fruit. They look sweet, but offer no nourishment. Here is the truth. People do not ultimately believe what you say. They believe what you embody. Your life is the amplifier of your word, and every day you are either strengthening that amplifier or silencing it. Consider the parent who tells their child, "You can be anything you want to be." But if that child sees only fear, hesitation, and unfulfilled dreams in the parent's own life, what do they truly learn? They learn that words are hollow. Contrast that with the parent who may speak less, but models courage by stepping into their own growth, even when it is hard. That child inherits not just advice, but vision. We live in a world overflowing with words, tweets, posts, speeches, slogans, but what the world is starving for is embodiment. For lives that carry words in the marrow of their bones, not just the surface of their lips. Let me take you deeper. Think of the great leaders, prophets, and teachers across history. What set them apart was not just their ability to speak, but their willingness to live their message, even when it cost them dearly. Gandhi did not simply speak of peace. He lived it through hunger strikes and radical nonviolence. Martin Luther King Jr. did not simply preach of justice. He walked the streets, risked imprisonment, and gave his life for it. Their words endured because their lives were the echo chamber that gave those words eternal resonance. So I ask you, what words are you speaking, and are you living? Are your apologies backed by change? Are your declarations of love followed by daily care? Are your visions of success anchored in consistent discipline? Because when your actions align with your words, you build something rare. Trust. And trust is the currency of every meaningful relationship. Without it, communication collapses into suspicion. With it, even silence speaks volumes. Now, how do we begin to align our speech with our actions? The first step is honesty with yourself. Speak less, but speak only what you are ready to live. Do not promise more than your integrity can carry. There is far greater power in a quiet truth than in a loud exaggeration. The second step is intention. Before you speak, ask yourself, am I prepared to live this out? Am I willing to pay the cost of this word? If not, silence may serve you better. The third step is courage, because living your words will not always be convenient. It will ask you to step out of comfort and into conviction. It will demand sacrifice. It may even invite misunderstanding. But a life of alignment, though costly, is far richer than one of contradiction. Let me tell you a story. A man once promised his dying father that he would take care of his younger siblings. At first, the words were easy. They poured out with emotion, carried by the heat of the moment. But as years passed, temptation came. He had opportunities to chase wealth, to move far away, to live without responsibility. Yet each time, he remembered his words, and he chose to live them, often at the expense of his own comfort. Decades later, when those siblings grew strong and successful, they carried with them the fruit of his sacrifice. His words had not vanished into memory. They had become a living legacy. You see, words are seeds, but actions are water. Without water, even the best seed remains buried in soil. But when watered with consistency, those seeds grow into forests. This is where true communication transcends language, because when you embody what you say, your life itself becomes the message. You no longer have to convince people, they see it. You no longer have to persuade, they witness it. And this, dear listener, is the highest level of effective communication, to live so authentically that your words and your life are indistinguishable. But let me challenge you here. It begins not with grand gestures, but with the small things. The friend you say you'll call, do you call them? The promise you make to yourself about waking early, do you honor it? The commitment to listen more deeply, do you practice it in the next conversation? Every small act builds the bridge. Every small act either strengthens or weakens the alignment between speech and life. And when you fail, and yes, you will fail, do not hide behind more words. Use action to repair. Apologies are hollow without change. Promises are empty without follow-through. Do not try to fix broken trust with speeches. Fix it with consistency. Because the truth is, you are always communicating, whether you open your mouth or not. People read your actions like they read your words. And when the two conflict, they will always trust what they see over what they hear. So let this chapter be your call to alignment. Do not waste words. Do not treat them as decorations. Treat them as covenants. And then honor those covenants with the way you live. Because when you live your words, something extraordinary happens. Your voice gains weight. You no longer need to shout to be heard. People will lean in when you whisper, because they know your life has already proven your credibility. And that, my friend, is the kind of communication that shapes destinies. But we are not finished yet, for there is still a higher calling, not just to live your words, but to ensure that your words and actions together create legacy. Legacy is the communication that continues when you are gone, when your voice is silent, but your life still speaks. And so in our final chapter, we will explore the art of legacy, the eternal ripple of communication that outlives you, because communication does not end with your breath, it echoes into eternity. Chapter 10. The Legacy of Your Voice. Communication Beyond a Lifetime. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this: a quiet room, a bookshelf, dust rising in the late afternoon light. A child, curious, pulls down an old journal. They open it, and there, written in faded ink, are the words of someone who is no longer alive. A parent, a grandparent, an ancestor they've never met. And suddenly, across the distance of time, that person's voice is alive again. The child hears their wisdom, their fears, their hopes. The writer is gone, but their words live. This is legacy. Your voice, whether spoken aloud or carried silently through action, does not end with you. It ripples outward, echoing in the lives you've touched, shaping futures you will never see, guiding hearts long after yours has stopped beating. And this is perhaps the greatest truth about communication. It is never just about now. Every word you speak, every action you take, every conversation you breathe into the world writes itself into eternity. But here is the question: what story will your voice tell when you are gone? Will your words be remembered as flames that burned bridges, or as light that guided the lost? Will your silence be remembered as absence, or as presence that gave others space to bloom? Will your actions whisper of fear and hesitation, or will they roar of courage and compassion? You see, legacy is not built in grand speeches. Legacy is built in the ordinary moments. How you listen, how you forgive, how you show up. It is not carved in stone monuments, but etched into human hearts. Let me tell you a story. There was once a teacher in a small village. She had no wealth, no fame, no platform. But she had a gift. She listened. She listened to the children when no one else did. She encouraged them with words as simple as "I believe in you." Years passed, and those children grew into adults. One became a doctor, another a leader, another an artist. At their core, they all carried the memory of a woman who had given them a voice when they felt voiceless. She never knew the extent of her impact, but her legacy lived on in their lives, and in the lives they touched after them. That is the hidden miracle of communication. You may never know how far your words travel, how deeply your actions root themselves into another soul. Legacy is not measured in applause, it is measured in echoes. But here is the challenge. Too often, we live as if our words vanish with the moment. We forget that careless anger can scar for decades, just as gentle encouragement can uplift for a lifetime. We forget that silence in the face of injustice is remembered just as much as courage that speaks. So let me ask you now, what do you want your voice to echo into tomorrow? If you long for kindness to be your legacy, then speak with gentleness now. If you long for truth to be your legacy, then speak with honesty now. If you long for courage to be your legacy, then let your words and actions carry bravery now. Because legacy is not created later, it is created daily, in every conversation, in every moment of presence. And here is the deeper truth: your legacy of communication does not belong only to you. It belongs to every soul who encounters it. When you speak with love, others carry that love forward. When you live with integrity, others inherit courage to do the same. When you listen deeply, others learn the power of listening. In this way, legacy multiplies. It is not a single echo, but a chorus passed from generation to generation. Think of the people who shaped you most. Maybe you've never met them. Maybe they wrote books, or sang songs, or left behind lessons that traveled far beyond their time. Their legacy lives in you. And whether you realize it or not, you are carrying it forward every time you speak, every time you act, every time you love. But here is the final invitation. Do not wait to become conscious of your legacy until it is too late. Begin now. Choose your words as if they will be remembered, because they will. Choose your actions as if they will be witnessed, because they live. As though your life is a message, because it is. And when your voice is one day silenced, may the world still hear it, in the way your children speak, in the way your friends forgive, in the way strangers remember your kindness. Because communication, at its highest form, is not about mastering conversation, or winning arguments, or even sharing ideas. It is about leaving behind an imprint of your soul, an imprint that whispers, "I was here. I loved. I listened. I gave. I lived with purpose." So let this be your charge. Speak as if your words will outlive you. Act as if your choices will ripple forever. Live as if your life is a message to generations not yet born. Because it, and perhaps, long after you are gone, someone will sit in a quiet room, open a book, or recall a story told at a family table, and your voice will rise again, not as an echo of the past, but as a light for their future. That is the art of communication fulfilled, not just words, not just actions, but a living legacy. Closing reflection. My friend, you have journeyed with me through the depths of communication, from listening to presence, to clarity, to embodiment, and now to legacy. You have seen that communication is not merely about words, it is about life itself. The true art of communication is this: to live in such a way that your voice continues to inspire long after you are gone. To leave not just echoes, but songs. Not just noise, but truth. Not just fleeting words, but living legacy. And so, as we close, I leave you with this charge: speak with purpose. Listen with compassion. Live with integrity. And above all, let your voice, spoken and unspoken, become a gift to the world that will never fade. Because in the end, the most powerful communication is not what you say, it is what you leave behind.